Okay, so Fortnite not only brought back tilted towers, but they also added in a dinosaur named Klombos to the game. And yeah, I mean like a real dinosaur. But hey, I'm not complaining. I'm loving these updates, and it brought so many awesome myths for the Mythbusters series. So just like always, if you do have a myth you would like me to test in the next or future episodes of the Fortnite Mythbusters, make sure to go down in the comments and drop a comment of that myth for a pretty good chance to be featured. Also, if you do enjoy today's video, I'd really appreciate it if you were to leave a like. Let's see if we can smash 4,000 likes. That would be insane. As well, while you're at it, make sure to subscribe and turn on those post notifications to never miss another Fortnite Mythbusters episode. Anyways, without further ado, let's get right on in to today's video. Kicking things off, jumping straight into the first myth. The first myth is Klombos strong enough to destroy an armored wall? As Klombos actually makes his way around the map, no matter what's in its way, if it's a tree, a building, if it's a metal wall, a brick wall, a wooden wall, it will get destroyed in an instant. Trying this out in game was pretty easy. All what I had to do was find some armored walls and find Klombos around the map. From there, I kind of projected, you know, the way that he was going to be walking and placed the walls in front of him. Whether there's only one armored wall or all 5 armored walls, the second that Klombos makes contact with the wall, it'll be destroyed in an instant. That 2,500 HP that the armored wall has doesn't even slowly tick away. It just goes from 2,500 down to 0 instantly, making a Klombos a pretty strong dinosaur. Going into the next myth, and a pretty funny myth. This myth is what happens when a shark enters a tornado. Now, in the last episode, we actually found out what happens when a llama enters a tornado, and the outcome of that is pretty funny. I was all the way up by Camp Cuddle where there was a shark in the lake, and the tornado actually made its way close enough to the shark where it did suck it up, and the shark had no control, just flying around in circles while the tornado just you know, was going crazy. After a few spins around the tornado, I did a little bit of damage to the shark, but eventually it was spit out of the tornado and it was launched over right next to me, where when the shark landed on the ground, it did take a pretty good amount of fall damage. The shark from there basically tried to pick itself back up and you know, wiggle its way into the water, where you know, it was hurt a little bit, but it definitely had a good ride on that tornado. Going into the next myth, and a highly requested myth. This myth is, do you lose the victory crown when you leave a match early? This is actually a very good myth. Now, if you do manage to get a victory crown in a game, that game you're usually going to be sweating because you don't want to lose a crown and you want your wins to count towards that cool emote. The game prior to this, I actually got a victory royale, giving me a victory crown. I then went into another match. I dropped the victory crown on the ground, then I picked it back up, put it in my inventory, and left the match right then and there. Unfortunately though, when I joined a game directly after, I looked at my inventory even when I was skydiving in, and the victory crown does disappear. So you might want to keep this in mind next time that you do get a victory crown. If you do leave a game early, it will disappear from your inventory and you will not get a second chance. Going into the next myth, and a pretty cool myth. This myth is, will the Shield Keg put out a campfire, kind of like how a ChugSplash does? So the natural campfire is located around the map. If you don't know already, while they are lit, if you throw a ChugSplash directly at it, it'll immediately put out the fire. This also goes for if you throw a firefly jar onto the ground or if a tree is on fire. The ChugSplashes will not only heal your player, but it also does work kind of like a fire extinguisher. With the Shield Keg as well as the ChugSplashes being very similar, in game when I tried this out, I basically found a natural campfire. I then lit it, threw down a Shield Keg, and shortly after, it did put out the campfire. I then tried this one more time, having the Shield Keg down prior to actually, you know, lighting the campfire. I also, you know, rebuilt the campfire with the 200+ wood, and it would put it out immediately. This is definitely good to keep in mind in game. You don't want to be trying to heal your shields as well as put out the campfire at the same time. Going into another great myth. This myth is, if you feed Klombos a hot chili pepper, will it walk/run faster than normal? Will steam be coming from its ears? Will the hot chili pepper basically have any effect? Now, the speed boost that you get from a hot chili pepper or even a spicy ChugSplash, it will not only affect just a regular player, but it also affects, you know, the AI guards or even the vault guards that are around the map. So that's what makes this myth so interesting. Will it affect Klombos, the dinosaur? So a cool feature with Klombos is if you put a consumable or just weapons in general in front of him, he will actually consume them, and sometimes he'll give you a reward like a shotgun or something. Since I believe they vaulted spicy ChugSplashes, I cannot find any for the longest amount of time. I basically threw a hot chili pepper directly in front of him on the ground, where he did in fact consume it, it went into him, and you know, he seemed to enjoy it. He made a little smile afterwards, but unfortunately there seemed to be no speed boost from the hot chili pepper whatsoever. I even climbed on top of him, tried to see if there was any steam coming from, you know, his ears or whatever, kind of like how it does for a regular player or an AI. And the hot chili pepper had no effect. Going into the next myth, is what happens when you use Spider-Man's web shooters and attach onto an object flying in a tornado. Now this myth was definitely very interesting. I believe the real answer is that it honestly varies. When I first tried this out, I was using Spider-Man's web shooters to attach onto some flying hay bales that the tornado actually did suck up, and immediately it pulled the hay bale out of the tornado. One of them fell to the ground. I then tried it once again, and it kind of glitched and it was floating in midair. Now here's where things get interesting. I then attached myself onto a rock or a boulder that was flying around the tornado, where I was able to stay attached for a little bit longer and managed to get to the direct center of it. Shortly after, there was a notification on screen saying that the web was broken, and my player was then in this state where it seemed like I was continuously falling, but I was still able to control my character going around the tornado. Now this was a completely different animation because my character was behaving the same way as if I was skydiving. I would hit space on my keyboard, which is also the keybind to deploy my glider. I could hear my glider through the audio, but it visually was not there, but my character was also behaving the same way as if I had a glider. I was then able to fly out of the tornado and still kind of control myself while having this falling animation, making my character a lot more difficult to spot in midair. And you know, this is a pretty OP strat. Going into the next myth, and a pretty simple myth. This myth is what happens when you stand in front of Klombos while he's sucking up items off of the ground. Now this was honestly a very easy myth to do. In game, I basically found some items, a consumable, a few weapons, and I tried this multiple times to see if there was any different outcome based on where my character was standing. The animation of Klombos actually sucking up the items, it seems pretty intimidating. It seems like he would pull your player into him and he would almost eat you, but that was not the case. It has no effect whatsoever on your player, and your player just stands there while he's you know, basically staring into you. So if you're ever in the position where you want to feed Klombos a few weapons or a consumable, you do not have to worry about him eating you, unless you know, you do make him angry. Then you might want to run away. Going into the next myth, and another highly requested myth. This myth is, will a shield keg heal you while you're resting in a tent? This is actually a great myth. So the shield keg will slowly regenerate your shield over time, and the tent does the exact same thing but for the regular HP. By resting in a tent and having a shield keg side by side, you could actually go from literally no health all the way up to max 200 health very fast, because the shield keg will in fact heal you while you are resting in a tent, making this a little bit overpowered. But then again, it is also always pretty risky to try and rest in a tent, because all it takes is for one player to sneak up on you. Going into the next myth, and another great Klombos myth. This myth is, does the flare gun detect Klombos? So in a previous episode, we already learned that the flare gun will detect bosses, vault guards, AI guards all around the map just by shooting it up into the air. So with Klombos the dinosaur being a brand new I guess AI to the game, will the flare gun detect it as well? Trying this out, I basically shot the flare gun up into the air where it scanned the area, and unlike how a boss shows up a crown, Klombos actually only shows an arrow above his head, which I thought was pretty interesting. I thought Klombos would be a boss, but Fortnite, I guess, did not register him as one. But yes, in fact, Klombos will be detected by a flare gun. This is a pretty good way to find them in game, but I prefer to use the visual as well as, you know, kind of like the audio inputs to find them. Going into the last and final myth. This myth is, what happens when Klombos walks into a tornado? Now with the spawn rate of Klombos being, you know, completely random, he could be all over the map, as well as tornadoes being pretty rare, let alone have them both be together at the exact same time. Getting Klombos to go into a tornado, or at least up against a tornado, it's safe to say that it's pretty rare. Fortunately, after many attempts, I managed to get a tornado to spawn side by side with Klombos, where I then, you know, got him mad, got him chasing me, running directly up against a tornado, where if he was a player, it would, you know, suck him up into the air. But in this case, the tornado had no effect on Klombos, no matter how close he got to it. Massive shout out to FuseClaps for allowing me to use his footage where he had a very similar situation, but instead of Klombos not wanting to go through the tornado, he baited him to go directly through the dead center, and the tornado still had no effect. So Klombos, he can't fly. It would be funny though.